Well, good morning, fish heads. Been a while. Not too long. Just about a week and a half since my last spray session. But it is Saturday morning. That's when I'm going to do this pattern for you guys. We should have the upload. You guys should be viewing this no later than on a Monday morning. Been trying to post as much as I could, but I've got tons of Labor Day stuff going on. So it's been a little bit busy for me. And I apologize for that. I've tried to keep you guys updated with workshop updates. But in the meantime, I got a request for a pattern today. We're going to put it on a wake bait because I think that that's just as good of a pattern as a lipless. Although traditionally I'll find these on lipless and Little Johns. But I've got a request for the woodland camouflage. Fall's here. Everybody's got deer on their minds. I still have bass on my mind year-round. Bass, walleye, trout, you name it. If it swims, that's what I'm thinking about. But today's pattern is going to be a fairly simple one. It's a little bit layered. I would give this on a scale of 1 to 10 a difficulty of 4. And we're going to start out, I've already got this prime on here. This is on the standard custom wake bait blank. And we're starting out with white. But to that, we're going to add 2 primary colors. We're going to add a lighter brown and a forest green. This pattern also requires some stenciling. Got a little bit of hodgepodge here, but because we're doing a woodland camo, we kind of want this to blend in as if we were wearing it military, I think Army always, because I am prior service. So we've got a few, and these all have come from Art Tools, and there is a link, a direct link for the Art Tools stenciling below at the bottom of this description on the video. So just a little bit of everything. This is a bit of a camouflage pattern. This is the Art Tools digital camo pattern. And you can see that I've used it on previous lipless. We have a crackle lightning pattern. I've got a couple of those in this that we can pick from. A little bit of a decay, that zombie effect that I use on some of the smaller baits, not the larger ones that you've seen on the actual Walking Dead patterns. And then a branching effect. All of these can be found either at airbrushmegastore.com or Coastal Air, or the least expensive place that I found to get them has been below at the direct link, so go check that out if you want to get a good deal on some Art Tools stencils. So we're starting today with the white prime. We're going to add in some transparent forest green and some wicked color, detail burnt sienna. I'm sorry, tropical green, 5116. So that's the colors we're going to start out with. We're also going to layer in some more white, a little bit of a sand color, and finish it off with, where's my opaque black? Opaque black is also in this pattern. And generally on these lures I use the black, just the black dot eyes, so no shine. You want this to look like a camouflage pattern. So let's get started. I've got the green loaded up in here, and we're going to do some random pattern, just some random base layer on this. About like that. Just give it a good coat. And then to the back end of this, I'm going to add in a little bit of sand. Make sure you get that gunk out of the top of this tube. Add in a little bit of sand. Kind of coat the bottom. And then we're going to want a little bit of that detail sienna. And we'll just finish up the other side of that. Maybe just do a little bit on this top back here. So we just have a bit of a randomized base layer pattern. And go ahead and take this 1.5 holographic off. Quick heat set, and we're going to start adding a little bit more context to this bait. Give it just a little bit more depth. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of a darker shade of brown here. And maybe hit this other side just a little bit. And maybe just a couple of spots here. The reason is we really want this to imitate that camouflaging pattern. And then when you think about what's going to go on top of this, you're going to want to see lighter camouflage on top of the darker pattern. So I would bring in my opaque whites and my sands to anything that's darker. And then I'm going to bring in my black and maybe just a little bit of moss green on places where it's lighter. First things first. I'm going to add just a little bit of crackle. I'm going to add this in an opaque black. Don't need a whole lot, but we do need to turn our pressure down. So now I've pulled that from about 35, and I'm now running it around 15. We want to try and lay this as flat as we can against the bait. And leave it still. It's pretty critical for this kind of stuff that you want to leave this as still as you can, not moving. Again, we can throw this down in a randomized pattern as well. This is not a very difficult pattern, so it shouldn't take too long to get these layers in here, and then just a little bit right there as well. So you can see what's starting to happen. Get a little bit of a transformation happening in this bait. We're going to do the same thing with the bottom. Just leave that in the helping hands and add just a little bit. Let's see if we can find a good spot. So now you're starting to see that transformation. Okay, and we might finish it with a little bit more crackle here in a bit, but for now we're going to change colors. We're going to add a little bit of sand color and some digital camo, and maybe in a little bit of this decay pattern. Just a few drops. Again, you don't need to overdo it. You don't need to be spraying this hard. Just going to add a little section of sand into the top of this here. And again, one of the keys is to leave this very still. When you slide this as you're painting, it's going to get muddy real quick. So you definitely want to come in and try and maybe brace your hand around that. There we go. We don't need a whole lot of that. Put a little bit of white on here, and you can't overlap. One of the things that you may want to do between, since you're doing layers, is go ahead and heat set so you're not setting the next stencil down on top of something that's still wet. Got a quick heat set on that. I'm now using the actual, if you guys can see that, camo pattern that you would see on an army uniform. We're going to lay that flat against the bait. Just come in real light. A couple more pieces up top. And again, just lay that flat. Anytime you're doing stenciling, even if you're doing a hard stencil, something like this, trigger control and pressure is absolutely key, and it will make a big difference. I'm going to do the same thing on this side here. Pull that up. You know, we're starting to see this pattern come together. Maybe do a little bit of lightning back here, because when you have any sort of a tree limb or branch pattern, you're not always just going to see light or dark separated. A lot of times in nature you'll see that together. To just give a little hint of that, I want to come over top of that with a little bit of Wicked Green. Just rinse that out real quick. Back flush it. This is the Wicked Detail Moss. Shake it up a little bit. I just used that earlier today. Hitting on the bottom here, we'll get just a little bit, lay that as flat as we can. Almost gives you a reverse pattern. Go back to our sides here. We're just going to lay a little bit of this in. You see how nicely that's coming together. So we're really starting to see that begin to look like a camouflage pattern. And then put a little bit more opaque black in here. I'm going to come back to my digital camo. And then finish up with a little bit more branch patterns. Get the belly inside real good. And you see that I'm not jamming this right over top. No, I have another one of these laying around here somewhere. There it is. And again, this is a pretty simple pattern. Doesn't take very long to do at all. But in order for it to be effective, and you can, I mean, there really is nothing set in stone to how this pattern should look. So you can really get creative with how you want it to turn out for you. I think really the sky's the limit with what you're able to accomplish with this particular bait. But the key again is to randomize it, not make it look too awful busy. But that's pretty much it. You now have a camouflage pattern. Simple, effective. Yes, it's going to catch fish. I've done very well with this pattern, and not just in the fall, but just seems like most folks think about this pattern in the fall a little more than they think about it in the spring. Everybody's in hunting mode. All right, folks, we went ahead and dropped this down into the clear coat. That is just a sneak peek at what the finished product is going to look like. So just a quick, really? Let me get through this, okay? Silly. Just to give you guys a quick recap on what we put together today. This is the Fall Camo Madness, the woodland camouflage pattern. We put that on a wake bait. Just stick with two or three base colors. And today I picked sand, some transparent, I want to say it's tropical green, and some detail burnt sienna. Laid those down as the base colors, and then folded a bunch of other things on top of them. The trick is, here's the key, don't overspray, don't use pressure while you're spraying. Mix and match from a bunch of different ones. It can look busy because it's supposed to represent camouflage. The colors that we brought back in, actually we didn't run those. We brought a little bit of sand back in. We brought white back in. We started with the white primer, the Wicked Detail Green Moss, Opaque Black, and a little bit of dark transparent brown. So those became our colors. One thing that you might want to do, it works for me, if you have some patterns that you want to use maybe again, put them in a little folder. That way you don't have to search through a bunch of stuff to get to it. And again, these are all ARTOOLS, ARTOOLS, and I'm going to leave the link in the description below on how you guys can get these at a reasonable price. They aren't completely inexpensive. There's a multitude of different packs that you can get. The ones that I prefer to use are the crackle patterns, the digital camouflage, the branch, the decay. Again, that stuff's going to be linked below for you guys. I really appreciate you guys watching. Have a great weekend, and I will see you on the next one. Happy casting, everybody. Cheers.